let's go next to Phineas Baxandall, who can talk to us about something that's very, very popular and very, very rarely done, which is taxing the mega wealthy. Phineas Baxandall is the policy director at the Massachusetts Budget and Policy Center. He has a long history as a researcher deeply involved in improving policy, especially at the state level and in Massachusetts. In his nearly 8 years at Mass Budget, Dr. Baxandall has served in numerous leadership capacities. In September 23, he was named the organization's interim president before returning to his role as policy director the following year. His policy knowledge and advocacy acumen have been instrumental in the organization's greatest achievements, and we will hear about at least one of those. Phineas Baxandall, take it away.
Well, thank you, thank you, David. Thank you for having me here, and on behalf of the Massachusetts Budget and Policy Center, we're really glad to be speaking here. But it really is the Raise Up Massachusetts coalition that deserves this victory. We served as a kind of think tank and research arm for this coalition. The coalition is a combination of community groups, faith groups, and organized labor groups, and that three legs of that stool were really important in the work. What I'm going to talk to you about is the Fair Share Amendment, or also known at the time as the Millionaire tax, because what it was a tax which starts only on your second million. So nobody gets, Massachusetts had until this one a flat tax where it was 5% no matter if you are a billionaire or if you are, working as a clerk, it was 5%, and it had been that way. Really, Massachusetts was one of the first states to have a state income tax back in 2016 when they put it in. They were scared about the idea of a graduated income tax. There had just been a kind of Bolshevik revolution going on, and they voted down that, but they were willing to say we'll have a income tax. We just won't let there be higher rates for people with higher incomes. And three times there was a ballot initiative. Massachusetts has the tool of a popular ballot initiative that we can change things when the legislature won't. And three times there were ballot initiatives before ours to try and change this. And the last one lost 72% was the loss. So every time the opposition had, kind of spent a ton and convinced people that this was just some ploy of the legislature, that they were going to end up taxing the middle class in this, and that it was a big tax grab for their, legislator salaries or however they thought about it. And so this effort really took, almost 10 years to win, because in Massachusetts, the the ban on graduated income taxes was actually in the state constitution. So we had to change the state constitution, which requires 4 years to do, because you have to two different 2-year sessions, get all these different kinds of approvals and gather more signatures and keep going back for it. And the first 4-year loop of it, the Republican governor had changed the court sufficiently, and the court ended up throwing it out over what people thought was a technicality, which wouldn't happen. So we had to go back to the drawing board and do this again for another 4 years. And it was hard for the coalition. We had to say, are we up for doing this again? And it, it was really a sense that we were in this together, and we were going to make this happen. And it was ridiculous that Massachusetts, people think of as such a progressive place, actually had this really retrograde tax structure and some of the highest inequality of any state in America. So, the effort went, and we we saw a lot of opposition. The Boston Globe, which is, can be pretty progressive on some things, but is owned by billionaires, and they kind of brought out the steely knives to do all kinds of attacks. They ultimately quietly did endorse it, but the attacks were much louder. And we saw, all the kind of business groups, the tech groups, which are really big, spend big and come up with all kinds of arguments. And they were saying that even though we had shown, and we're working with IRS data to do this, that it was, less than 1% of the population has an income over $1 million in a year. Um, there was, it was 0.7%, but they kept on saying, no, no, this is going to hit, older people who've got their nest eggs that they try and catch in, homeowners, if you sell your home, small business owners, sort of, they tried to change the face of who was going to pay the millionaire's tax. And they had, some really uh, effective messaging on this stuff, and we saw our poll numbers go down. And the biggest thing that really we hadn't anticipated, and which became this real obstacle for us, is we one of our sort of internal kind of mantras on this was, if we make this about taxes, it's going to be a harder fight. We need to make this about what the money's going to be spent on. And the the measure is written and in the Constitution to say that they can only be spent on public education and on transportation, including mass transportation. And um, they sort of kept saying that it was going to be all kinds of other things that it would get spent on, but we really held to that. And in doing so, and in trying to say that, look at education, look at transportation, what we hadn't anticipated was the pandemic, obviously, but what we hadn't anticipated was that there was going to be all of this federal money pouring into Massachusetts like other states. So we had this unanticipated giant surplus in our state budget the very year, and only as a one-time temporary thing. The moment that we are pointing to all of the deficits that we have, that we can't hire more teachers, we can't repair our school buildings, the legislature is saying, wow, we now have all this money, we can't spend it fast enough. And the governor actually, through a kind of obscure rule, was sending people checks, a kind of refund check, because there was too much money. So we had to really focus on what we hadn't thought we were going to have to focus on, was the tax disparity. That, that how it was that all in all, that the very richest people end up spending less on their taxes as a portion of their income, and just trying to make it about tax fairness, and that we as a more progressive state need to have a more fair tax system. And that was a harder fight. And the ballot question ended up being, fairly close, only a couple percentage points. We didn't even have it announced the very night, but we won. And a lot of people had written us off, and it was a resounding win. And they had said, we'd been saying, through great work from the Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy, who helped us crunch the numbers, we'd said that it was going to be at least $2.6 billion a year. And officially they said, no, 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 the rich people, some of them are going to leave, or this isn't going to happen. It's only going to be $1 billion a year. And now it's been proven, now it's going to be almost $3 billion a year. So $3 billion a year is coming in. We have seen real transformation in Massachusetts as a result of this. Other states had to pull back all these policies after the pandemic. They ended their free school lunch and meals programs. We kept ours with the fair share money. They ended the deep support for early education and care for child care providers. We kept ours. We have free community college across the state about this. We have of our 16 public transit systems, the biggest one is still charges, but the other 15 are free. You get on the bus, none of them charge. All the regional transit systems. the K-12, it can go on. There's been just education and transportation. Every year there's sort of new things being added. It has been a utter success story. I mean, we're going to still have challenges like everybody else with this federal mess going on, but it has been really made a difference in people's lives. And the coalition has really worked hard to make sure that people know this was funded by Fair Share, that was funded by Fair Share, so we can build upon that and people can understand that progressive taxation makes changes in people's lives. So I'll stop there.